We have our first lesson from Isaiah. I believe this is the second Sunday we've had Isaiah. Psalm 80, and then we're in Hebrews 11. I think we started in Hebrews 11 last week. And Luke chapter 12, and I think we were in Luke chapter 12 last week. So a lot of these are just semi-continuous reading. We call them semi-continuous because that means that they follow the one before, but not necessarily immediately before, okay? So Isaiah chapter 5, verses 1 through 7, I have a special place in my, shall we say, a special place in my heart for Isaiah 5, 1 through 7. The reason being, this is one of the passages that in my Hebrew class in seminary, we had to translate it. So we went through this thing with a fine-tooth comb, if you will. So here we are, Isaiah chapter 5, verses 1 through 7. Let me sing for my beloved my love song concerning his vineyard. So apparently we have a ballad here, okay? My Hebrew professor, who is also my Old Testament professor, suggested that it's possible that this indicates that one of the ways that our prophet Isaiah got his message out was by going out and being publicly puts himself out there, and he offers these metaphorical ballads and such in the town square or what have you. It's an interesting thought. Who knows? Maybe he actually did, but we don't have a whole lot of clues as to typically how prophets delivered their messages, so why not, right? Let me sing a song for my beloved, for my love song concerning his vineyard. So obviously we're dealing with a metaphorical reference. The Lord is the beloved. His vineyard is Israel, okay? This is not the first time we see this kind of imagery, but this is, what's the word? Foundational for an understanding for how and who Israel is with regard to the Lord. The Lord being the gardener, the master planter, whatever, and the vineyard being this planting that did not emanate from human hands. It emanated from divine work, okay? Let me sing for my beloved my love song concerning his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill. He dug it and cleared it of stones and planted it with choice vines. He built a watchtower in the midst of it and hewed out a wine vat in it. He expected it to yield grapes, but it yielded wild grapes. When in the translation that I remember doing in class, the professor was keen to point out that that word wild, when we look it up in the lexicon, it means something more than just wild, but it tells you a little bit of what they tasted like or smelled like. Stink grapes is the way my professor wanted it translated. He expected it to yield grapes, but it yielded stink grapes. This is the way he liked it. So this is, I hope we see, a metaphor for the expectations of God with regard to his people, although we can't really be all that surprised because we already know that the Lord was well aware of the stiff-neckedness, if you will, of the people because of the experience in the wilderness already, right? Well, the thing about a fertile hill means he gave it the best chance to produce properly. He dug it and cleared it of stones. It's like, there's a lot of rocks. You got to get rid of a lot of rocks if you want to plant a vineyard in Israel. And planted it with choice vines. So it's like the care of the gardener toward giving the vineyard the best chance, the Lord took all of these things into consideration, right? Even built a watchtower in the midst of it, and he hewed out a wine vat in it. It's like the whole operation was ready for production of a fine wine, of a good wine. Everything was there. Protection and harvesting, and even a later production into consumables. He expected it to yield wild grapes. He expected it to yield grapes, but it yielded stink grapes. So this is how we know it's definitely referring to the plight of Israel, Judah, and the like. And now, inhabitants of Jerusalem and people of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard. So it's like we have typically, not atypically, might say, in the Old Testament, in the prophets, a declaring of a court case, a reeve, R-I-V, a reeve, where the Lord is usually the one who enters as judge, and there are arguments made. Now we're hearing a call out for somebody else to judge, like the judge. The Lord has a judgment against us, or the Lord has an indictment against us. Judge between me and my vineyard. What more was there to do for my vineyard that I have not done in it? So the Lord's argument is that there's nothing more that I could have done. And for this, agreement is sought. When I expected it to yield grapes, why did it yield stink grapes? And now I tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will remove its hedge, and it shall be devoured. The hedge was a way of keeping predators, things that, critters out that would munch on things and destroy the ability to make a harvestable crop from it. I will break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. Notice the imagery here is duplicitous in that it also describes what a conquering army would do, which is exactly what eventually happens to Jerusalem and Judah, right? With the coming of the Babylonian overtakers in the 6th century. It will make it a waste. I will make it a waste. It shall not be pruned or hoed, and it shall be overgrown with briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. So when exile does happen, it results in taking away of the best of the people and leaving behind those who are least able to take care of things. And so what happens? Things get overgrown. It's like when you see a town become a ghost town, like we have in the wild, wild west here, and no rain upon it. It's like, this is the way in the withholding of, the care that is needed for a vineyard. I'll command the clouds, they rain, no rain upon it. By the way, remember one of the problems, one of the indictments that the Lord had against his vineyard was that they went after other gods and worshiped them, the Baals and such. And so the Baals were considered the gods that would control the weather and control one's ability to make a living and such. So this is another point at which the Lord is asserting that that thing that you gave deference to as being more powerful than me, well, guess what? Not the case. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. Just in case you didn't get the metaphor. The vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel. And the people of Judah are his pleasant planting. He expected justice, but saw bloodshed. Righteousness, but heard a cry. The words for justice and bloodshed in Hebrew have a similar sound. There's an assonance that they share, and so he's going with a little bit of wordplay, but yet the meaning, we get it. I think it's mishpat and mizpah, something like that. I can't remember exactly, but I do remember justice is mishpat, and I believe bloodshed is something like mitzpah. Yeah. Anyway, righteousness, but heard a cry. Yeah. Oof. I like the exclamation point. We don't have punctuation, by the way, in the original Hebrew text. Punctuation was invented long after that. Righteousness, but heard a cry. Remember, the basic problem that the Lord had with his people was that they were putting too much emphasis on doing the churchy things, what we would call the churchy things, the cult, the temple stuff, and not practicing righteousness and justice out in the world, out there. And so here we see the same theme, do we not? Psalm 80, as we have come to see, and I think I pointed on this a few times, is a reflection or a response that follows the theme of the first lesson. Okay, hear, O shepherd of Israel. So we're in Psalm 80, and then we just take verses 1 and 2, and then verses 8 to 18. Hear, O shepherd of Israel, leading Joseph like a flock. Shine forth, you that are enthroned upon the cherubim. This is a call to the Lord, say, to listen up, Lord. In the presence of Ephraim, Benjamin, and Manasseh, stir up your strength and come to help us. So these are all northern kingdom type things with the Ephraim and Manasseh were the major portion of the northern kingdom was Ephraim and Manasseh. Benjamin was right around Jerusalem, quite frankly. Trying to get in all of the listening. Stir up your strength and come to help us. So this is a cry for help, yes. Now we skip to verse 8 and we see the link with our first lesson from Isaiah. You have brought a vine out of Egypt. You cast out the nations and planted it. Yeah, a vine out of Egypt. See, this is the way vineyards were grown. You would typically bring a vine with you, like that's how the vineyards in California got started. Quite frankly, it was people brought stuff from France and from Italy and would planted them there, and then they would thrive, right? You cast out the nations and planted it. This is all a metaphorical way of describing what God did with Israel in the land of Canaan. You prepared the ground for it. It took root and filled the land. The mountains were covered by its shadow, and the towering cedars by its boughs. Ooh, that's quite a statement to say that a vineyard could actually cast shadows on mountains, and also the cedar trees, which they really didn't have there. That's what they got from Lebanon, was even farther north. But that's saying something quite, what's the word, exaggerating, shall we say, hyperbolic about the vineyard. You stretched out its tendrils to the sea and its branches to the river. The sea is usually a reference to the Mediterranean Sea to the west, and its branches to the river. Is that is that just talking about the Jordan River, or is it talking about, I don't know, the Euphrates? We don't know for sure, but it's all symbolic of the fact that what Israel attained was an accomplishment of the Lord and no human accomplishment. Why have you broken down its wall so that all pass by pluck off its grapes? The wild boar of the forest has ravaged it, and the beasts of the field have grazed upon it. You see, when a land gets overtaken, that means that there's nothing keeping the wild beasts away. So guess what? Yeah. Turn now, O God of hosts. Look down from heaven. Behold and tend this vine. Preserve what your right hand has planted. Frequently in our call, in the people's call to the Lord, it's motivated by a sense of, how can you let this continue? This is so horrible. It must be stopped. There must be something done. You can't just let this go. You can't just let your name be violated by the vanishing of your people, that kind of a thing. Verse 15, they burn it with fire like rubbish. At the rebuke of your countenance, let them perish. Let your hand be upon the man of your right hand, and the Son of Man you have made so strong for yourself. Is that a reference to the king, possibly, or the prophet, possibly? And so will we never turn away from you. Give us life that we may call upon your name. So this is all a plea for help, as we saw in the second half of verse 2. Stir up your strength and come to help us, okay? This is all a plea. Restore us, O Lord God of hosts. Show the light of your countenance, and we shall be saved. Yes. So this is the cry of the people as they recognize that they indeed are the vineyard that has been let go of, even though the Lord started it. Okay, we're going to turn to our New Testament lessons today. Now, our second lesson is from the book of Hebrews. We started out in Hebrews last week, and it began this conversation of the topic of faith and what faith is and what it looks like. Well, today we launch into more and of the examples that that this writer. It's not Paul, by the way. It is a congregation, a Christian congregation that is mainly made up of ex-Jews, if you will. And so here we have in verses, so chapter 11, verse 29. Through the second verse of chapter 12. It's all one that definitely continues the same thought. So 11:29 to 12:2 of the book of Hebrews. By faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as if it were dry land. So the examples up to now have been talking about how people acted. By faith, Abraham did this and that. By faith, Moses did this and that. Now, by faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as if it were dry land. So it's a recounting, yes, of, well, the existence of faith isn't new. It's always been a part of the history of God's people. But when the Egyptians attempted to do so, they were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell after they had been encircled for 7 days. It helps to have a good knowledge of these Old Testament stories, especially like we have them in Joshua and Judges and such. By faith, verse 31, Rahab the prostitute did not perish with those who were disobedient, because she had received the spies in peace. I thought that the Rahab story predated the one with the falling of the walls of Jericho, but I might be mistaken. There's that story of Rahab the prostitute, when the spies had gone into Israel and, into what would become Israel, but they found themselves at Rahab the prostitute's place, and I can't remember what happened exactly, but they formulated a plan with her whereby this scarlet thing would hang from the window, and this is how they would know that it was her place, so that she would be spared when there would be an overtaking of the land. And she was spared because of the fact that she was extended kindness, if you will, to the spies. That's what it means when it says receive the spies in peace. Verse 32, and what more should I say? And so this is where our writer stops giving us specific little story snippets and just starts to name names. For time would fail me to tell you of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith, so one time when I was teaching this through this book of the Bible in Sunday morning Power Bible Study, I used this as a jumping off point to actually do studies on all of these people that were listed: Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, which is basically, those are all in Judges, and then of David and Samuel and the prophets. That's all what we have in Samuel and Kings, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice. So here are those were the names. And now these are just some of those things, a sampling of those things that they did or accomplished when they were exercising faith. Who, through faith, conquered kingdoms, administered justice, obtained promises, shut the mouth of lions. Oh, we're familiar with shutting the mouth of lions wasn't that Daniel? But I don't think he got mentioned specifically, but of the prophets, yeah. Quenched raging fire, escaped the edge of the sword, won strength out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Read Judges. Yeah. Women received their dead by resurrection. I don't know what that refers to. Others were tortured. Some of these things that are mentioned don't coincide with the names that were mentioned so much as they coincide with some what we call apocryphal or writings. Not enough time to go into those, but this is just something that we've learned. Others were tortured, refusing to accept release in order to obtain a better resurrection. So what our writer is arguing for is that faith has been the hallmark of the true believer from the very beginning. It's never not been. And we have this picture of martyrdom, and we know that there's more of this that comes with the Roman persecutions and such. So this gives us a clue that the congregation that is being addressed was going through a time of hesitancy toward moving forward in the faith. They'd made this jump to Christianity as Jews. It's a jump because they actually said, "Oh, this is our Messiah, and we're going with this Messiah." And then they were starting to like, but should we go any farther with this because it could lead to danger? And our writer here is making it a point to say, danger is part and parcel of the equation of following Christ. Yeah. Others suffered mocking and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned to death. They were sawn into. They were killed by the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, persecuted, tormented. Yeah, don't know specifically who he's talking about, but talking about people going about in skins, well, it was, they couldn't be Jewish. A good Jew wouldn't wear anything like that because they don't come into contact with dead animals, and that's what that would be. So their garments always had to be made of cloth, of linen and such, of whom the world was not worthy. a writer is really greatly extolling the virtues of these, what we would call martyrs of the faith. It's as though our writer is saying, well, you think you're suffering. Many have suffered much worse, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains and in caves and holes in the ground. Yeah. You think you got it rough? Yeah. Yet, verse 39, all these, though they were commended for their faith, did not receive what was promised. Huh? Interesting. But we've received it. That's what it's kind of saying. Since God had provided something better so that they would not, apart from us, be made perfect. So it's as though our writer is arguing that by our exercising our faith today, like they did back then, we are like bringing to completion the promise that they ended up dying for. Verse 1 and 2 of chapter 12. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely. This is actually the nut of the message of the book of Hebrews. Let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. I love those words, pioneer and perfecter. Once when I was going through my inquisition time, well, when I was on my path to ordination, one time I remember the bishop asking, like, who is Jesus for you, or something like that, and I said, and I kind of quoted this, where I referred to Jesus as the pioneer of and perfecter of my faith, and and the bishop was a little bit confused about that until somebody had to remind him that this was a metaphor from the book of Hebrews. Okay, anyway. Who, for the sake of the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, disregarding its shame, and has taken his seat at the right hand of the throne of God. So it comes down to making this argument for the preeminence of Christ, which fits the bill with regard to the point at which the people were hesitating going forward, and saying, no reason to hesitate. You can run with perseverance that race. Look to Jesus. He's the one who's already run it. He's completed it. There's joy that was set before him. He endured the cross to get there. He disregarded its shame, and he's seated at the right hand of God. So his argument is that's what's in store for us if we would just stay faithful. Yeah, it's a good little message. All right, on to the gospel. Luke chapter 12, verses 49 to 56. Luke chapter 12, verses 49 to 56. We have been in Luke 12, and the last time we were in Luke, we ended up in verse 39, and then there's a passage from verses 41 to 48 that we don't have in our reading for today. 49 is where we start up. This is a very interesting. Okay, remember the context. Jesus has his face set toward Jerusalem, right? There's something for him there that's going to be very ugly, but yet very necessary. It's going to be controversial, but yet it's going to be something that God's hand is in. So a lot of times there will be statements here that remind us of what's ahead for Jesus, because he is on his way to Jerusalem in the biggest sense of the word, if not geographically or chronologically, but definitely in the context of the narrative. Verse 49, I came to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. So Fire is frequently a metaphor for activity that God is doing. So, yeah, and it's going to cause a little bit of a ruckus because fire sometimes destroys things that are precious to us. Okay. I have a baptism with which to be baptized. He's referring to the fact that he knows why he's going to Jerusalem. He's going to be crucified. He's going to die, right? So, and frequently he refers to his baptism and death is the same, as a similar experience. And baptism represents death, and rising from baptism, represents new life. Okay, this is a part of the baptismal imagery. I have a baptism with which to be baptized. Oh, also remember this, that Jesus in the teaching of John the Baptist says, well, John the Baptist, he baptized with water, but I'm going to baptize with the Holy Spirit and what? With fire. Yeah. So these statements, by the way, in verses 49 and 50, are not found in any other source. Much of what we find in Luke is also common to Mark and or Matthew. These two verses are not common to any of the other synoptic gospels. Verses 51 all the way through 56 are found in a common source of Matthew and Luke, because they both contain the similar statements. Not in Mark, though. So I didn't finish verse 50. I have a baptism with which to be baptized, and what stress I am under until it is completed. We know the agony that happened in Gethsemane, and he sweat drops like blood. Yeah. So this is kind of a reminder of what is ahead for him, and the fact that Jesus is under no delusion over what's about to happen. Now, verses 51 to 53 are not something that he says to the crowds. He's saying to the disciples, just like he said 49 and 50. Verses 54 to 56 at the end, those are to the crowds, okay? So this is a teaching that's just to the disciples, okay? Look at this. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? Now, we always think of Jesus as bringing peace. Of course he's bringing peace. He's the Prince of Peace, blah, blah, blah. Well, here the word peace doesn't mean peace like the peace of the Lord, shalom, the shalom of God, that kind of thing. What he's referring to is non-agreement, disagreement, enmities that occur between people that has nothing to do with God, but it has a lot to do with the choices that we make about God. Okay. No, I tell you, but rather division. Bum, bum, bum. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. They will be divided. And then he quotes Micah. I think it's Micah, not Malachi. No, it's Micah. Verse 7, Micah 7:6, I think it is. I don't see it in my notes here, but that's what I thought I saw when I looked up this. Yeah, Micah 7:6. Very good. They will be divided, verse 53. Father against son, and son against father. Mother against daughter, and daughter against mother. Mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. So, this is simply an indication that the community to which Luke was fashioning his gospel was already experiencing conflict because of commitments over Christ. It can be controversial because of the fact that the attitude of, and we already saw this in our Hebrews writer, that it can cause some consternation. To follow this Christ means that you're willing to accept something that's uncomfortable that's going to come, and that can cause problems for a family, because families need everybody to be on the same page, if you will. So it isn't that Jesus came intentionally to divide, but Jesus knew that who he was would create division. It's not that we are peacemakers as Christians, But we know that the decisions that we make for Christ, they're not always going to be they're rarely going to be popularly shared, okay? So this is what he's referring to. No, I tell you, but rather division. Jesus isn't saying, I believe that what we have here is a recognition that with the community to whom Luke is addressing, they're experiencing this kind of strife in the household because of division. And he puts this in here to say, look, this isn't a surprise. Jesus said it would be this way. So don't be shocked. Don't blame, oh, well, look what I got for following Jesus. I got, strife in my household. Well, our writer is saying, Jesus said this would happen. So don't blame him. This is something that we all knew was coming because he said it. Okay, then he turns to the crowds and he makes a general teaching. When you see a cloud rising in the west, you immediately say, it's going to rain, and so it happens. And when you see the south wind blowing, you say, there will be scorching heat, and it happens. Interesting, we're not as keen, since we're not an agrarian society and more urban, we don't necessarily follow the weather like that, but if you could picture Israel, that's the way they knew what was going to happen. I like the way it says you see the clouds, and also when you see the south wind, the south wind, if it were blowing hard enough, it will carry a whole lot of dust in it. So yeah, you'll see the wind. Yeah, and it happens. Verse 56. You hypocrites. Now remember, the word hypocrites means you play actors, you people who are pretending to be something that you're not. That's what he means when he says hypocrites. You know how to interpret the appearance of earth and sky, but why do you not know how to interpret the present time? Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, it's a castigating of our ability to, in the modern times, you can read the financial markets. You can read what's happening in politics and where the trends are going. We're good at that. We know that. But yet, we're a little bit clueless when we're looking at what God is doing. Jesus is saying, I am what God is doing. Look to me. If you have discernment, the kind of discernment that you have with regard to the weather, if you have that with me, you would actually be in a better place right now, mentally, physically, socially, emotionally. Okay, that is it for the day. Until next time, shalom.